So we're going to start today by looking at self-empathy. And this is actually the first thing I learned in this process was self-empathy. And at the time, I didn't think it was that important. I mean, I actually thought it was a better thing to put my focus on other people. And I was trained, actually, that if I put my focus on myself, that's selfish. And the truth is that when I started to learn this process, and especially when I decided to become a certified trainer, I had this idea that I was supposed to be compassionate. And so I would just, it was kind of like bearing down. Okay, I've just got to try to be compassionate. And I thought that if I was really nice to other people, that somehow I would become compassionate and I would be like this empathic vessel that would sort of appear. And I always thought I was doing it wrong until I started to really just focus on myself. And what I learned is that compassion is an inside-out job. And I'm not certain, or I don't recall at least anybody ever telling me that. Or maybe they said it and I just, maybe it just went over my head. But I found it to be true. And the truth is, when I first decided to become a certified trainer, I didn't tell anybody for about 3 weeks because I figured people would be so astounded that I would want to do this for a living because they wouldn't think that I was compassionate enough for it. But when I started to heal some of my own stuff, that was at the point when I started to have a lot more space for other people and a lot more space to be compassionate and consider what's going on with someone else. So this self-empathy, you're going to get like this much of it today because, we could do 8 weeks just on this one thing. But I want you to know that I think this is just really sacred work. Self-empathy, taking care of ourselves, noticing what's going on with us and taking responsibility for that and taking care of ourselves so that we have more space for other people. And also, frankly, just so we can enjoy our life more. So, the purpose of it is to truly just connect in and notice what's important to us. What is the life that's running through us in that moment? So I want to start by asking you to do this little exercise for me. I want you to come up with a situation in your life that you're not happy with. And it could be something intimate and personal. You won't say it out loud to anybody in the room, so you'll be able to keep it to yourself. And I want you to come up with one sort of static line that describes it. Something like, she's never on time. Or, he only thinks about himself. She's insensitive. He's a jerk. Whatever, just one static line that describes it. Is there anybody who'd like more clarity about what I'm suggesting? Okay, so either write down your one line or just know it in your head. And I'll give you a moment or two to come up with your line, and then I'll tell you what to do with it. Okay, so now what I want you to do is close your eyes and let that line run through your mind over and over and over like you're ruminating on it. And then notice what happens in your body when you do that. And I'll tell you when to stop. What did you notice?
Nausea.
You actually got nauseous? Mm-hmm. Yep.
I felt a throbbing in both arms.
Yep.
Like I was like 2 years old.
Mm-hmm. Some people get a tight jaw or a tight gut, tight chest.
I felt frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Did it kind of make it more frustrating the more you thought about it? Mm-hmm. Yep. So some of the other things, everything that you've said I hear in almost every workshop. Some of the other things that I notice, for myself, my breathing gets short and choppy. So it's like I'm breathing from here to here. And my heart rate goes up. Sometimes I get hot. Anybody else have anything you want to add? Okay. So now what I want you to do is, remembering that universal needs are things that help our lives thrive, that we think everybody on the planet needs, no matter where they live, who they are, how much money they have or don't have, what their culture is. Every human being in the world, that's what we think of as a universal need. So, imagining that, translate your sentence into this. I love it when, and in the parentheses here, put a need. So for instance, if my sentence was, he's never on time, it might be, I love it when I get predictability or I get respect. If I think she only thinks about herself, it might be, I love it when I get care or I get heard. Is that clear? Okay, so rewrite your sentence, or redo it in your brain, into this, and then I'll just give you a minute to do that, and then I'll tell you what to do with it. Okay, so now close your eyes and let your new sentence run through your head over and over, and notice what happens in your body when you do that. What did you notice that time?
Ease.
Mm-hmm. Physically, so physically you became more comfortable? Mm-hmm.
Very relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody else notice anything? So I notice for me that I instantly take a deep breath. That's the first thing I do. I don't think about it. I don't plan it out. I just instantly take a deep breath. And I notice my jaw loosens. If my gut's tight, it's not so tight. So the reason I think this is true is the first time most of us are focusing on somebody else. And so our focus is out here and we're here. So that's the first part of it. We get disconnected from ourselves because our focus is out here about all this junk we don't like about the other person. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that we're focusing on what we don't want. And if that's where our focus is, generally that's where we're going to head in our behavior. So remember my story about how I wanted to be heard, and so I would start to talk louder and move into people? It was because my focus was on the fact that I wasn't being heard, and so my behavior followed that directly. When I do this sentence, and the sentence itself isn't all that important. Actually, I like this sentence, this is what I use, so that's why this is what I teach you. But if this languaging doesn't work for you, I would support you in changing it. But the reason it works is because I'm focused on what I want. First of all, this is the emotion, and this is what I want. So the minute that I do that, I feel better. Just because I'm clear for a moment about what it is that I want. I just feel more relaxed just because of that one thing. And nothing has actually changed outside of me because I haven't said anything to the other person yet. but I'm clear on what I want, and that means I come right back home, right back to me. And specifically, I focus on the need rather than, I want this person to be on time. Because I can think that till the cows come home in certain relationships, and that person is not going to be on time. That would be a strategy, a particular strategy that I want to meet some other needs for, maybe respect, maybe predictability or trust, maybe ease. So how I use this in my life, the first part was just to help you have a physical experience of what it's like when you're not focused on what you want. But how I actually use it in my life is I just think this line. So I might be having a conversation with somebody and I'll just think to myself, man, I love it when I get heard, or I love it when I get respect. I love it when it's easy. I love it when I get good connection that's fun. And I don't know how many times I do this in the day, a lot of times in the day actually. If I'm someplace where I can write, I might just write it out. And the hardest thing for me was remembering to do it. But here's one of the things that started to really help me, is the more I was clear on my physical experience, the more I became more aware of my emotions. So for me, I started to notice that my stomach was tight or my jaw was tight, maybe that my breathing was short and choppy, and that then became a direct line to my emotions. And when I could clarify my emotions, then I knew what my needs were. Is that clear what I just said? Okay. Any questions or comments or thoughts about this? What we just did, this whole process? Your experience of it?
So did you start to integrate that sentence? What was the first step? Did you write it down? Did you have it on your wall? How did you get started with starting to bring that up?
Yeah. I like that question. I'm not certain how I actually got started. Well, as I said, my very first class was on self-empathy. So that actually was the primary focus of learning NVC at the time for me. I think writing it down, putting it on your wall, would be a really helpful thing for a lot of people. When I first started learning this process, I was in a fair amount of pain in my relationships. And so I was really pretty committed from the beginning and just trying to do it differently. And so if I noticed that my body was uptight, then that would actually help me remember to say the line. Did that answer your question? Anybody else have any comments or thoughts you want to say?
This is getting to what Marshall talks about, what's alive in us.
Mm-hmm. So when Marshall talks about what's alive in us, what he means is that if we're having an emotion of any kind, which we pretty much have all the time, whether we recognize it or not, we're pretty much always having some kind of emotion. So what's alive in us is checking in with the emotion is attached to the need. Remember last night that I said that it's back there, but that your feelings are a result of whether your needs are met or not? So he's talking about that need that's running through us. It's almost like the need is the life that's running through us. So it actually took me a little while to connect to that languaging, but now I love it. In the beginning it might be a little tricky to get that. Did that clarify it at all for you?
Yeah.
Well, the short answer is that when he says what's alive in you, he means what need is most present in you. Okay. So another way to do self-empathy is just connecting to that need or that life, as Marshall would say, in you. Come up with another situation in your life that you're not happy with. It could be something you feel sad or disappointed, angry. It could be anything. So I'll just give you a moment to come up with your thing. And what I want you to do is just to identify it. That's all you're doing right now, is identifying a situation. Sometimes this part goes really fast and sometimes not so fast. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to take this card, and on the bottom back there's a list of needs, kind of a short list of needs. So I want you to think about your situation, and I want you to think about it in a way that you're trying to figure out what is it that you want. So you're not thinking about all the behavior that the other person did. You're really just trying to connect with what is it that I want. And look at the list and sort of read them in your mind's eye. And notice if any of them, when you get to them, you notice some kind of shift in your emotions. It could be really subtle. And I'll just give you a minute to do that. I'd love to hear how it was for you. Like what did you notice, or did you notice a shift of any kind when you connected with a particular word?
I moved recently from a place where I was for 30 years, and I'm by myself in a new setting, and I had never, I'm unsettled, but I couldn't pin why until I read the word community, and I realized that's what I'm missing, is this sense of belonging to a community that I've always had for a long time, and that I haven't been able to expand upon in the setting I'm in. So that was I don't think I ever processed that was part of it. There were other things too that needed, but that's a part of it that I didn't realize was there.
And so when you were able to connect with that those words, community or belonging, did you notice a shift in you? Could you talk at all about a shift that happened, or?
Recognizing it was kind of empowering. I didn't even feel a need to have the need met. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
But just knowing that it was a part of what I'm struggling with helped me. I think a little bit. I just felt some peace in the knowing. Whether that I don't know what I'm going to do about it, but knowing it's there matters.
Thank you for saying that, and especially the way that you said it, because I think that's exactly what you're talking about. We have a sense of kind of even relief, and it is like recognition. It could be called relief, it could be recognition, just because we have a sense of what it is in us that's wanting to come out, or what are we missing, or what are we longing for. Any other thoughts or anything about the self-empathy process? Yes?
I just noticed when I hit on the thing that struck me is that when I stayed there for a moment and stayed with it, I felt a deeper sense of that need, rather than just a cursory, I need this more. It's like, I really need that. So I got a deeper sense of that.
Thank you for saying that. That's actually why I had you ponder. So I'm glad that worked for you. Sometimes another way of saying what you're saying is that I become aware of how much that need is a priority for me. Or another way of saying it would be how much that need is not met in my life right now. So I become clearer. It's not just that in this relationship right now, it's not just that. It's actually here. It might be at work. It might be in my partnership, my friends. I might start to notice, that is really a big deal for me. And the extent of how precious that need is for me, and the extent to how much it's not being met, will be a direct relationship to how big my feelings are. So have you ever had one of those situations where something happens and it seems like kind of a small thing and you just blow up, or you start crying really big, or something like that? For some of us, we might be a little bit embarrassed about that. That line, let's not make a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. Well, I think all the emotion is attached to how precious this need is to us and how much it's not being met in our life right now. So it becomes one of our great big priorities, not just a little thing. And you also might notice that in your relationships, other people have different needs that are their priority. They might have a bigger, like mine might be, my priority might be fun, and whoever I'm spending time with, their need might be more for rest. And so it can look like that's a conflict. I'm confident we can actually find ways to value both the needs, but initially it can look like a conflict.
I noticed when I looked at the word hope just jumped out as being, and I wouldn't have thought about that with that situation I was thinking. So it's kind of interesting to come at it from a little different way.
Right.
To see hope is the word resonating.
I think hope comes up a lot, and I think many people don't recognize it. And I think it's because we're in a situation and we might be frustrated with it, and probably we've been in it for a while, in that sense of frustration in that relationship. And so just connecting to hope, what I really want is hope that it could change. Can be a huge relief just to recognize that's really it right now. And I think we talk about needs being not hierarchical like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, not like that, but certainly there are some that are deeper in, like maybe core needs, and I would consider hope one of the core needs, along with meaning and purpose and love, that kind of thing. The other one that often comes up is clarity. So you'll hear somebody talking about a situation in their life, and they're talking about they don't understand what's going on, and this person said this, and what does that mean? And I don't know if you can relate to being in a conversation like that, where somebody's trying to figure out what's going on. Actually, just connecting to the need for clarity can help just shift it all down and make it clearer. That's really all that I want right now, is clarity about what's going on.
One word that when I was reading these, there were a couple that came up, but I kept hearing in my mind inspiration, so I started looking for that one. So would that be kind of like hope, I guess, but I don't see it on the list.
Yeah, and I totally think it's a need. So how I decide if something's a need, because that list is it's a small list, and there's, millions more probably. If that came up for me, I would think, okay, so does somebody in Zimbabwe need inspiration? Would somebody in New York City need it? And maybe in Flagstaff and maybe Israel? I don't know. I come up with some odd places. And if I can say yes to everyone, then my guess is it's a need. So I definitely would say inspiration across the board. Yeah.
My word is healing.
So healing is one of those words. It's kind of tricky. I can see it as a need, and I can also see it as a strategy to meet a deeper need. So a question you could ask yourself is, if I got healing, what need would that meet for me then? Can you come up with an answer even now? My guess is it might be something like peace, harmony, meaning. Could be meaning or purpose.
It seems really difficult to get to that need.
I think for some of us, we get hung up on the languaging of it. I think some of us have been raised in a way that if we need something, that we're somehow more vulnerable in the world, or we're taking it more than we should, like we're too needy, whatever. So languaging that might help is, what do I want? So not what is my universal need, because then it's like I almost have to come up with the whole paradigm, okay, so it was over there, it's that, come up with this whole paradigm thing and then connect in. So if that is part of what's blocking you.
It's more American. What do I want?
Yeah, exactly. So what do I want? What would I really want in this situation? And try to keep yourself as much as possible from thinking what I want is for this person to do that thing.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
It was interesting to me that the needs I know I have that I've identified previously and been working on that have seemed so important to me and probably continue to be, didn't jump out at me as much as the ones that all of a sudden I was newly discovering that I hadn't realized it was there. So, I mean, we were talking about hope, and hope's been a huge thing for me for years, because I felt some hopelessness in my life. And so, but I focused on that, and when I didn't even realize it was on the list until somebody else brought it up, and I went back and looked at it. That was startling to me too, to realize this need that I've invested so much in didn't jump out at me when others that I hadn't recognized earlier did.
Gosh, I love it that you brought that up. Remember last night I was talking about that group of women who were in our first class? And we all were supposed to identify what's our big need, and none of us were even aware of it. That's what we were talking about. So we go about our life and we do a lot of stuff. And for some of us, we do stuff that's either easiest for us or stuff that seems urgent. And that's the stuff we attend to. But underneath that are a lot of other needs that are being left unmet for many of us. And so part of this process of connecting to what we want is starting to clarify all that we want and creating a life that allows for that as much as possible, allows for all those needs to be met.
I thought, the statement from the person, the thing that I wanted from them, or the need I had to have met with them. And I had a similar experience. I read through the list, and I'm like, I want that, I want that, I want that, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I came to this one, to self-expression, and I had to go back to the list, and I came back to that one again. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And I sat with that. And what happened was an interesting process, because I went from a place of wanting to somehow have that person meet a certain need, mm-hmm. to just recognizing, this is about self-expression. Mm. And so that was an interesting process.
Yeah.
Right from outside and inside.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for bringing that up. I think that happens a lot, actually, what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Anybody else? So the two self-empathy methods that I'd like to leave you with today are just these two, both of them very simple. One of them is the I love it when statement. So that's something you would do silently. And you can do it when you're talking to somebody. Just think, wow, I love it when I get respect. I like it when it's easy. And the other one is just looking at your list and giving yourself a moment to just think about your situation and read the words until you have some kind of internal shift. And it might be really subtle. But when you connect, when you have some kind of even subtle shift, just sit with it for a moment or two. And I like what you guys have said about how sometimes you might have to read the list a few times or make up your own word. Now sometimes something will happen that you're so triggered by that you can't think about it in your head, that moment when your head is kind of rattled. So I would suggest take yourself away. Go into the bathroom for a minute, ask for a break. Do whatever you need to do, but take yourself away. And for me, what's helpful is to say it out loud. I have lots of clients who do writing, and so they might write it out for themselves. I think I'm more verbal, so I like to say it out loud. Somehow when it's out there and I hear it coming back in, it helps me. But lots of people prefer the writing.
So is that considered, when you say you're reading the lesson, the word hope jumps out, or the word self-expression, is that considered like an authentic? That's the core. That's what's actually a lot. That's what's core.
Yes, that's what.
You're just intuitively.
Yes.
You get that zing.
Yes, it is like a zing. Mm-hmm. A zing, or sometimes I call it a kerchink. It is like that. That's actually what it is. And that kerchink is connecting to that life in you. That would be another way that Marcia would talk about the life. The kerchink is connecting to that life in you.